Today is March 21st, 2007. We're here interviewing Mr. Raymond Weese about his World War II experiences. Mr. Weese, would you tell me your full name, please?
Raymond Weese.
And where were you born?
In Dyer, Arkansas.
And when was that?
11/17 of 27.
11/17 of 1927. So I suppose you went to school in the Dyer area?
I went to school in Dyer, and elementary school and high school at Alma.
Tell me who your parents were, Mr. Weese.
George and Bonnie Weese.
What was her maiden name?
Johnson.
So she was Bonnie Johnson. Were they all from the Dyer area?
Around the Dyer area, yes.
If you can think of them, tell me your grandparents' names.
My grandmother was Georgia Myrtle Johnson Morse. That was on my mother's side. And on my daddy's side was Sarah Ann Thomas, or Sarah Ann Carnes, Weese Thomas, that's what it was. And I never did know my grandpa on either side.
Oh.
They died before I was ever born.
That's right.
My mother's daddy's name was Josh Johnson. He was from down around Delaware, Arkansas. And my daddy's daddy was Albert Harvey Weese, and he was killed in some kind of a fight breakup or something in Alma, Arkansas.
Oh, my.
In 1904.
My.
So I never did get to know
Yes.
neither one of them.
Do you happen to know the previous history of your families? Did they come here to Arkansas from Kentucky, Tennessee, or do you have any stories to that
Well,
effect?
yes, I got stories that dates back to 1733, whenever the first Weeses come to Arkansas, come to the United States.
Oh, that's a nice
I've
history.
got the history of that about they come over here on the USS Anderson in 1733, and they were up around Muddy Creek, Pennsylvania.
Muddy Creek, Pennsylvania.
That's where they settled, and they had to cut it pretty short because the first Weese that was ever born in the United States, his name was Jacob Weese, and he was born, I think, about 3 weeks after they landed.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
He almost was born on the sea, wasn't he?
I've run the history back on that, and it's in the library at Alma.
Good.
And I finally, my great grandmother is buried over at the 12 Corner Cemetery between Alma and Dyer on that 61 Community Road.
Oh, I see.
And I never could find out who her husband was. And I finally got in touch with a woman got in touch with me from San Diego. Jeline Beamer was her name. And she had a bunch of the history, and she connected Elizabeth, my great-great-grandmother's husband. That's whenever I can connect it all the way back to Germany.
Isn't that nice? That is a wonderful thing to do.
So,
Preserve
anyhow,
your family's history.
I've got a whole lot of history on that, and I've been working on this for several years.
That's a good project. Tell me a little bit about what Dyer, the big town of Dyer, Arkansas, was like when you were a boy.
Well, it's just one of these ordinary towns, and naturally they had these, we didn't call them gangs, it was just clubs.
Mm-hmm.
They used to call them the Dyer Tin Horns.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. I've always tell them that whenever I'm talking about back then, that I didn't even know how to spell tin horn, and I said, now I are one. So
What did they do? What Were there just some boys
Well,
knocked around?
Yeah, just messed around, just find a little bit of something, you know, where we could do a little bit of work, you know, to make us some money to go to the show, you know. We didn't have it. Two movies that we'd go to, one at Mulberry and one at Alma. So we couldn't take our pick on what movie we'd seen like we can do now, you know. But I believe that we used to go to Mulberry, and that movie then was 11 cents. And I believe up at Alma was the same way too. So
Did your gang of boys play baseball together out in the
played
cafe?
baseball. They had one team named the Dar Tin Horn, the other named the Kinsey Crawlers.
Crawlers.
Yeah. We didn't have the regular baseballs, you know. We just we wound up a bunch of twine and stuff like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and then sew it together, you know, and
That was a common Arkansas way to make a
yeah,
baseball.
and lots of times you could hit that ball and you couldn't see nothing but a string there when the threads broke, you see.
Well, did your dad farm? What was your family's
Yeah, he worked for a guy down where the Dar truck stop is now. He worked for a guy down there for about 12 years. And started out at 75 cents a day, and I think the most he ever made for him was $1.25 a day. And the guy I worked, he was a shipping clerk at Ford Smith Folding Bed and Table Company. And he finally got him a job over there, and that's where he retired from.
But did your father also farm on the side, or
No, no,
himself?
he just, he done, whenever him and Mom first got married, just before I was ever born, they farmed cotton down there one time.
In the dire bottoms?
Well, it was down towards Vine Prairie or somewhere around in there.
Well, what did your gang of young men find to do? What kind of work did you do to make a little money?
Oh, pick beans, pick cotton, hoe corn, and just cut spinach, and all that stuff.
So you were living the life of the Arkansas farm, even though your father was not a farmer.
Yeah.
What I'm building up to is how physically fit you were. When you did enter the military service, you had farm muscles, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, you had to be kind of physically fit in order to live back then. Especially like my dad, he worked on the WPA there one time. And he was coming to work, and they was rode in the back of the pickup that the government furnished, you know, and they didn't have seats back there. All they had for seats was just a piece of lumber laid across the bed of the truck, and you sit down on it, and the Picket Hill, you know where it is.
Oh, yes, right in Van
There's
Buren.
going down Picket Hill, and evidently there was a car run out in front of them or something, had a wreck there. Well, when it did, it drove Dad forward, and he went down on his knees, and that board hit him in the back of the legs and broke the leaders in his legs.
Oh.
He was flat at his back for 16 weeks one time.
Oh,
And he was off work for over a year. And never got a thing out of it back then. He worked on the railroad one time, and you've heard of carbuncles, haven't you?
yes.
He had a carbuncle and under his arm that had 16 heads on it.
Oh, my.
And he took off one day to go to have the doctor to lance that. Went back to work the next day, and they fired him.
Oh.
So that's,
Things were different in that day.
that's the story of, I guess, the early part of my life.
So you were able to go on to high school. Did you finish high school?
No, I went to about the 11th grade, something like that.
And when you were in high school, were you beginning to hear the news about the war in Europe?
Oh, yeah. I remember the day that they bombed Pearl Harbor.
Tell us first of all what you were hearing as a schoolboy. Were the school kids talking about, the history teachers perhaps talking about what was going on in Europe with Hitler?
Well, not that I can remember the first part of it. history teacher up there that the part that we got into was a discussion. One student had a side of, being 21 before you could vote, and the other student was the one that was on the side of just make up some kind of a story,
like a
or
debate,
something, in other words, like a politician.
Oh, yeah.
And so I happened to be on the one that was for the 18-year-olds voting, and I think I made a mess out of it, but anyhow. I usually always did, so it's nothing new for me.
But there was talk, and then there was news on the radio.
Yeah.
You were mentioned Pearl Harbor. What were you doing the day of December 7th when you
I was
heard?
going to school, walking to school. We lived about a mile from the schoolhouse, and I was walking to school, and I was going across that railroad track. It was foggy, real foggy morning, and going across the railroad track, and somebody said, well, Pearl Harbor had been bombed, or something like that, and I thought that was the end of the world.
Oh, yes. How old were you at the time?
Oh, 15, 16, somewhere along in there.
So you knew it wouldn't be too many years till you'd be eligible for that 18
Yeah.
magic number for the service if you couldn't vote.
Yeah, there's 5 of us boys, and there's 4 of us in the military at one time.
Were they older than you?
I got a twin brother, and then I got 2 brothers older than I am, and then one younger.
So you kept up with the news after Pearl Harbor. You probably heard a lot.
Well, yeah, I didn't understand a whole lot about it at that time, but it didn't take long to get in school then, though.
Well, who in your family was the first one to be called on to serve in the military?
It was my older brother. His name was Bill. John William was his name, but we called him Bill.
Was he drafted or did he volunteer?
He was drafted.
Do you remember what year that would have been?
About 42, 43, somewhere along in there.
Go ahead and tell us what branch of service he was in.
He was in the Navy.
Oh, he was in the Navy too.
Yeah.
Do you have any little rundown of where he served or anything about his service before we go into years?
Yeah, he served on a ship called the USS Gridley. 280, I believe, was the number of it. And he was on it for the whole time. In fact, the business, his ship was on a secret mission one time, and they had them missing in action for over 30 days.
Oh.
Mom and Dad couldn't get a thing from them, and that was during the time that he got injured. And he never did get a Purple Heart for it. That's what I'm working on now, trying to get him a Purple Heart.
That's good.
He died about 2 years ago.
Did you ever know what the secret mission was?
Never did. He, the injury that he got, it more or less destroyed a lot of his memory.
Oh.
And he didn't remember a whole lot about it.
Awesome.
He just remembered that there was an explosion.
Well, I'm glad you shared that with us. And your next brother, Ben, was called up?
His name was Scott, and he had went in, he had joined with a friend of his out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he was in the Naval Air Force. And I don't know a whole lot about his history. He don't talk about it too much. I don't even remember the name of the aircraft carrier he was on. He was an aerial gunner.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, and they flew off some aircraft carrier. I don't remember which one it was.
And then it came your turn.
Yeah, well, I went into the Navy. I was drafted into the Army, and I went down to Little Rock and took my physical examination. Me and a friend of mine, his name was Neil Henson, we went together. His birthday was on the 18th and mine was on the 17th of November. There's a little story about that. We turned 18 years old and we had to come to Van Buren to register. So the 17th happened to be on a Sunday.
Your birthday?
Yeah. Well, we had to wait until Monday to register. And this Neil Henson, his birthday was on the 18th, so all three of us, me and my twin brother and Neil Henson, come up to register. We got up there to register and they made me register first. The reason they made me register first is because I was the oldest. I was 15 minutes older than my twin brother, and then I was a day older than my friend.
But they had to keep it in good order.
It had to go in order, yeah. So we went down and took our Army examination down at Fort Roberts or something like that, down at Little Rock, Camp Roberts. And that was during the time that you could, they give you 21 days. I guess it was to get your affairs ready before you go into the service.
Yes.
But during that time, you could join any branch of service that
during the
you wanted
21
to,
during those 21
days. Well, me and Neil Henson got talking, and me, I never could stand a necktie around my neck. I just wore them in certain occasions, you know. And so I decided to go into the Navy because that necktie is way down here. You tie it with square knots, you see. So anyhow, we went into that, and we took our basic training together. We was even on the ship together.
What about your twin brother? What did he go into?
He went into the Army.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. And he went over in Korea. That was before the war ever went on in Korea, see.
Oh.
And he had, I think at that time he was a cook. And they had him sleeping in tents, and his feet froze over there.
Oh, yes.
He's had a little bit of problem with his feet, but not much.
Well, did they give him a medical discharge because of his feet, or did they just patch him up and send him
They
back?
just patched him up.
Put him back in?
Yeah.
What is your twin's name, Mr. Weese?
Ralph.
Ralph and Raymond.
Yeah. Mine is Raymond Earl, and his is Ralph Burrow.
Oh, well, that would be a good match.
That would catch.
What was the date of your draft? What year was that? You went in November the 18th of...
I registered, it was...
Registered.
Yeah, that's 45.
1945.
Yeah.
All right, so you chose the Navy, and where did they send you first?
To San Diego at the Naval Training Station there at San Diego.
Tell us what they were training you for. Was there any specified
It's
training?
just a military training.
Just
that
a regular
I went
basic?
through, yeah.
Okay.
The first 21 days you was restricted. You couldn't go nowhere, it was just there on the base. Then after you graduated out of that camp and went into another camp, you know, the basic training, well, you could get weekend liberties. Then after you graduated the whole thing there, they'd let you come home on leave. Then when I went back, they went back to San Diego, and they sent me to Camp Elliott. That's at the disembargo center. And, well, we had made a joke out of it. What we done over there is just passing time, you know. I'd pass out quilts or blankets for the servicemen that was coming back from overseas, you know, from coming there to the barracks, and all we had was cots. I done that, and we called it dive bombing. We had a stick with a nail on the end of it and we was out picking up paper.
Dive bombing.
We called it dive bombing.
I'd like to back up a minute though. You went into the war after a lot of the big battles. You were at home and heard a lot of the stories. What were what was the attitude of the people at home? What support, or did you hear criticism of the way the war was carried on? Or I'd like to know the atmosphere in the United States about that time.
Yeah, well, I imagine that the whole time was, people was more or less stunned about it. Just like they was when they bombed Pearl Harbor, you know. People were stunned. They couldn't believe that they was being bombed. So
Well,
that's the best I can remember
Yes.
of that.
But was did you feel like the country was united, that we had to win this
Oh,
war?
yeah.
There
Yeah,
was
we
not
was.
the faction of one fighting that we shouldn't be fighting this war, like
No,
we.
everybody was behind them on that because we were attacked.
Yes. And that unity, I think, probably gave the soldiers and the sailors courage.
Well, yeah, and back during that time too, after Pearl Harbor was bombed, you'd be surprised at the people that went down and joined. Whenever Roosevelt declared a war on Japan.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's a line. There's New York. I've been hearing a lot of stories about New York, and it was a line around the block. You know.
That's right.
Next day after that was on Sunday, you see, and the next day after that, on Monday, they lined up around the recruiting office.
Had you personally known boys from Dyer who had been in the war for some time before you went in? Did you hear news?
Yeah, I knew some people down there that was in before. I knew some of them that got killed. In fact, one of my best buddies got killed there. He went in before I did.
What was his name?
His name was Wally Swofford, but we called him Docky Swofford.
Docky Swofford.
And he went in, and I guess got killed no sooner than he got over there. And I don't remember where it was, but anyhow, just like he stepped off the ship onto the beach and got killed right then. It's you know, just
Soon after you.
yeah, soon after he got there.
War arena.
And then there's another named Edgar Morse, I believe was his name. He was a little bit older than I was.
Was he also killed, or was he just?
Yeah, he was killed.
Well, what did that make you feel like, knowing you were going to have to go?
Well, I was hoping that I'd miss out on a bunch of it. But, you know, you never know. So,
I'd like to ask this about life at home, too, during those early war years. Everything was rationed. Many things were rationed, in other words. And the government and the newspapers were putting out suggestions of how to make do with what you had, how to make your food stretch, how to share food with the soldiers and all that. Do you recall victory gardens, or how you dealt with gas rationing and those kinds of things?
oh yeah, we had gas stamps. And you had A and B and I believe a C stamp. They meant different things. One of them was for your ordinary driving, you know, like private driving. One of them is for driving to work and back. And the other one is for another deal. I don't remember what it was now. But I think you was rationed on your private driving. Seemed to me like it was 3 gallons a week. I'm not sure.
I think that's right.
And then I don't remember how much the other was.
So you had to think before you,
Right,
before you
right.
drove. Well, I'd like to know now you're out in San Diego and you're waiting for your turn. So they finally assigned you to a ship.
Assigned me to a ship, and
Now take us on through the war years and what you saw and did. I'd like to hear your
Well,
story.
about the only thing that I seen was there out of Okinawa. The fighting was really over.
And what ship was this?
It's USS Lowry.
Lowry, L-O-W-E-R-Y.
And we was a ship on picket duty, and what that picket duty meant was we had radar on this ship, but radar wouldn't stretch out, but I believe it was 90 miles, I'm not sure. But we'd get outside the fleet and circle around the fleet to pick up that early radar, you see.
Yes.
And the ship that I was on too, it was if there was submarines in the area, and they launched torpedoes or tried to get into the main body of the fleet. Well, these destroyers are supposed to go in there and confront them first. And if they was close enough into the fleet, you know, they would, if they sent off them torpedoes, they're supposed to go in and take the torpedo before
Yes.
got into them bigger ships, you see.
Mhm.
So that was what that picket duty consisted of.
Mhm.
But I don't know how long it was after the war. You'd find a bunch of damn nuts over there that would,
Yes.
didn't believe the war was over.
Mhm.
They'd come in and start firing on you.
Mhm.
And that's about the only way that I got into some of them battles, which are not even recorded.
Yes, but it was just as critical because they could undo
Yeah.
what had been accomplished by our troops.
Yeah.
Well, let me go back then. Where were you when you heard that Germany had surrendered in May? Were you still at home?
Yeah, I was still at home.
Did that give you a little bit of courage?
Yeah, it did. It let me breathe a little easier because I just figured when they surrendered, you know, everybody else would surrender too, you know, because they the instigated the whole thing, you see.
Didn't quite work that way though.
No, it didn't quite work that way.
So Japan kept on fighting a little longer.
Oh, yeah.
And you're out there trying to avert some of these attacks on to the ship groups or whatever you would want to call those. And when did you know that you were going to be taking part in some secretive type action?
Well, I really didn't know. We'd heard about it. That was all it would, the information we'd get. Just we'd heard they was going to have one. Well, me and my friend, Neil Henson, we decided that if we got discharged before that thing went, you know, had that test, we was going to sign up for, going to re-enlist and sign up for that. They didn't have to ask us, we'd volunteer for it, but they didn't ask us.
Oh, they give you the opportunity to opt out.
But it didn't work out that way because our ship was involved in it to start with. They already had that cut and dried before we ever got on it.
Yes, they did, I'm sure.
And so we, the night before we left, the evening, skipper of the ship gave us liberty. We could go wherever we wanted to, but we had to be back aboard the ship at midnight.
Mm.
So we went to, me and a couple of my buddies, you know, went to San Francisco. Just walked up and down Market Street.
Mm.
And we come back aboard the ship. It was before midnight. And went on to bed. Well, when we woke up, we knew we was out in the middle of the ocean because, you know, it's a feel that you have on the ship, you know, to tell that you're underway.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to the chow line, and they was, I thought they'd moved the whole army in on top of us there. They had soldier boys everywhere.
Awesome.
And we knew at that time that we was going somewhere. There was two of us ships went from the United States to Pearl Harbor. And it was one of our sister ships called USS Mold. And it would escort us a while, and then we'd escort it a while. We got into Pearl Harbor, we went to the sub base. That's where we always tied up, is at the sub base.
Mm-hmm.
And we tied up there at the sub base, and there was one guy that got on the dock there where we pulled in. And he was in a Jeep. And he caught the lines when we throwed them over to him, and he hooked them around the chalk there to tie us up. Then he got in his Jeep and left. Took us about 30 minutes to refuel there. We got refuel, we could undo them ourselves, you see. Then we took off and did the same thing. USS Mole escorting us, and us escorting them all the way to Kwajalein, over in the martial law. And on the way over there, I was in the engine room, and I kept, you know, we have headphones down there that, you know, you can keep up what's going on aboard the ship there, you know.
So what was your assignment on the ship? What were you supposed to be doing all the time?
I was usually on the throttle. And we got to getting, they got to telling us over that headphone that we got to get kind of like a distress call. And I don't know how true it is, but I understand afterwards that they was towing the battleship Oklahoma over to Bikini for it to participate in it. And all the stuff that I've got, it never was over there. Then I heard that they was taking it back to Seattle, Washington for, they bought it for scrap iron. See, they was going to put that back in commission, but they couldn't, it had teak wood deck, you see, and they couldn't, it was just too expensive, I guess is what it was. Anyhow, I heard that guy that was going to buy it for scrap iron in Seattle, Washington backed out, and they had target practice on it.
Oh.
Now, I don't know if that's a fact or not, but when we got to Bikini, when we got to Kwajalein, that's when this boat come out and picked up all them high officials.
So
And
you
they-
had a lot of high-ranking officers on your
Oh,
ship
yeah.
on that trip over.
Oh, yeah. And they, the last we seen of them is headed towards Kwajalein, and then they come out with a bigger boat, and they got them other soldier boys to took them off. And we sat around Kwajalein there for a while, and then we headed for Bikini. And I think Bikini's, I believe they said it's around 90 miles from Kwajalein. And we got over there, and we spent the night over there just going so far this way, so far this way, so far this way, just a square box all around.
Did that seem odd to you?
Well, not really, because they done odd things there that I didn't understand, but have done it, you know. But anyhow, they claimed that we was 8 miles from where that bomb went off. Now, all records shows that we was 10 miles, but at the time we heard it was 8.
Mm-hmm.
And they took all of our cameras away from us.
No, you
Nobody had a camera.
You were suspicioning things by now, weren't you?
Yeah. So whenever we knew when it, see, they clued us in more when we got over there, what we was, you know, going to do. And whenever that bomb went off, we knew what time it was going to go off that morning. And they, me and some more of the sailors aboard there, the ship, that got up on the bow of the ship, and I was sitting on that anchor windlass whenever that thing went off.
And what bomb are we talking about? Tell us what it is that they're trying to...
It's the underwater test on a Baker bomb. There's an over water test, above water test is dropped out of an airplane, and then there was an underwater test. It was in a bottom of one of them small boats there that they had sunk.
What about the date? Can you put a date to this?
I've got it in my stuff. I believe it was around August the 25th, I believe. Now, I'm not sure, but it's in that stuff that I've got.
Now, this is before the bomb was dropped on Japan, or is this continuation?
This is after.
After the
This
bomb.
is the 5th bomb. See, there's one in White Sands, New Mexico. Then there was 2 in Japan. And then there's above water test in Bikini and the underwater test. And that's the one that we was on.
I'd like to stop right here in the story, though, and ask you where you were when the 2 went off in Japan. Were you in San Diego or on the ocean?
No, I was at home at that
Still
time.
at home,
Yeah.
okay. So you heard about these strange new bombs that could do tremendous damage,
Yeah.
not knowing that you were going to be pretty close to that kind of
No, I
testing.
didn't know anything about it at that time. In fact, we didn't know what that bomb would do at the time anyhow. I don't think they did either.
They didn't, I'm sure.
Because they didn't know what maybe it might set off a chain reaction and blow up the world, you know.
So they were taking quite a risk.
Yeah, it was kind of hairy there for a while, you know, but it's just like another bomb that went off. So.
So you're getting to be in close waters to the underground testing of the atomic bomb, further testing after the 2 were used on Japan. And you think you were stationed somewhere like 8 miles from the...
That's what we was told at that time, that we was 8 miles. So I had no other way of knowing it other than somebody's.
Were all these above ocean and at ocean level and under ocean level, all these bomb tests carried out in August of the same year, or were they scattered over a month or 2?
No, there's one, the above water test there in Bikini was, seemed to me like 2 weeks. I don't know the dates of either one of them, but I know it was somewhere around that, around 2 weeks from one another.
Okay, that's what I'm wanting to know. All these 5 atomic blasts were set off within a few weeks of each other.
Yeah,
These
so
5.
that'd be either the last of July or the 1st of August, something like that.
So that was quite a change in the world's military capabilities. And you took part in a historic part of that. Now continue and tell us what you saw your own self.
Well, I was sitting there on that anchor windlass, and that's kind of weird the way that thing done it. I was looking into various spots. We did, you know, it was the first time we was ever over in that area. We didn't know exactly where they had that bomb set, you know. But anyhow, we happened to be looking right at the spot whenever it went off. And it kind of looked like that, it's hard to explain there what it looked like about just before the water started coming up, you know, the explosion. And just like it raised up, just gradually raised up a little bit, and then all at once, and there it was, you see. Well, whenever it went off, we started heading from it. Running from it.
The ship.
The ship. And actually they had a countdown on the PA system there. And they counted up to 0 when the bomb went off. Then they counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on up like that after it went off. And the count got to 8 for the time we got there. By the time the sound got there. Well, the sound sounded a whole lot like explosion way off or thunder way off or something like that. But to me, it seemed like somebody took, you know.
The pressure.
Yeah. So anyhow, it put out a radioactive cloud after it went off. Naturally, you know, after it went off, it just went up so far the real important parts of it, and then all at once it just started raggedy out, you know, like them pictures, it started ragging out here, ragging out there, and it finally was just a little cloud up there, and they followed that cloud for 4 days before it all disappeared.
Your ship did?
No, we didn't. It was
Some of the
another
ships
ship.
did.
So, anyhow, it's quite an experience. Then after we done that, we stayed around there a few days. And that's after we was in there directing traffic too, you know. We went in there to see how what had done to all them animals and stuff that was on the ship.
Tell us, how many ships do you think they had collected out there to check damage on? Did they have several worn out battleships and different types of sea vessels?
Yeah, some of them they put back in commission.
Oh.
I used to have a number.
Well, just an estimation would be.
In fact, I've got it over there in my stuff.
That'll be in your file when we copy your
Yeah,
papers.
it's got where they was placed, the ships placed and everything.
So they did have live animals on some of these
Yeah.
ships to test.
They had from goats all the way down to ants. That's the way I understand it.
But no humans that you know of were within
No
them.
humans that I haven't heard of any anyhow.
Speaking of the humans, what did they do to the Bikini Island
They
natives?
moved them natives off. They even went and got them another island and built them houses and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And
Did you ever hear an estimation of how many people lived on that island?
probably, but I don't remember now. And I don't even remember where they took them to. I think it's another island about
Yes.
120 miles away, something like that.
Was there any vegetation left? Was the island destroyed in these bombs, or was it?
Now, we got liberty after that when it went on the island, you know, after that bomb went off. And the island I went on was, the name of it was Inu. And, shoot, we got to trying our hand at peeling the husk off of them coconuts. And that's not an easy thing to do.
No, and you were hoping you weren't eating radiated coconut meat.
Well, I didn't eat none of it. I don't know whether anybody else did or not. But he even had the Liberty aboard. I mean, one of them islands. Had a baseball game, and he went swimming there in that lagoon and the whole bit.
How much precaution did they take with you? Did they warn you about anything? Did you really realize what radiation was?
They really didn't. They really didn't.
In the first place, they didn't know themselves.
No, this is all new for them. See. But they did tell us that after that was over with, not to talk about it to nobody. In fact, that is scared, you know, that we were scared to talk about it, kind of like it was when it was in White Sands, you know. I've just heard stories about that. But
Well, do you think that secret mission your brother was injured on had anything to do with this kind of testing?
not that time. No, this is during that wartime stuff, you know.
Regular
I don't
maneuver.
believe it did.
Did your ship get any of the ash, the fallout, or debris?
Oh, yeah. We was there, went in there about 8 hours after that bomb went off, and it was still daylight when we went in there. And we stayed till about 4 o'clock the next morning. We had to get out. But the whole time that we was in there, you could, you'd been in on a foggy morning, had you? It just felt like that the atmosphere was awful thick, you know. And you could, well, you couldn't actually feel like there was moisture coming down on you, but I'm pretty sure there was.
It altered the atmosphere
Yeah.
in that region.
And I'd go out and do, scientists, they had them on our ship. I'd go out and I would talk to them. and see what they was doing, and they had a little tripod like thing with an arm out like this, and it letting these little valves or something down in the water there in that lagoon, and bringing up samples all the time. They let one down and put it in a deal, test it, and get rid of it, and you let another one down. And some of them they would save. And fish, there was fish all over that place, ungodly looking fish you ever seen.
Came to the surface?
The bomb had
Dead. Came to the
killed
surface.
them.
Well, did they keep you in that danger region very long, or did they soon realize they had to get you all away from
They
there?
realized they had to get us out of there, and that's the reason we left out there about 4 o'clock the next
Next morning.
morning. We was right at the, I believe it was at the bow of the USS Independence, because I remember going in there, and I remember thinking, now that ship looked like it's around something. Flight deck was kind of pushed up.
And it's one of them that was close to the bomb area?
Oh, yeah, they couldn't go aboard it for a while because it was too hot.
That would be something.
See, I didn't know about all of this
Yes.
until I started getting that literature, and reading up about it, because I've been trying to find everything out, everything about it that I can.
So how long did you continue in the service after you came away from those testing areas?
That was in 46, and then I got out in 47, October of 47.
So this bomb testing was in August or so of
Yeah,
46?
46, yeah.
Okay. About a year after the bombs were dropped on
Yeah.
Japan? Okay.
And we come back to the States, and naturally we had to go into dry dock. And man, they cut the pieces out of that ship and stuff like that they had to take out.